Well, shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm so glad you clicked on this video because we're going to look at some amazing things in this short video. We're up to page 185 of volume 2 of Rabbi Avigdor Miller's new translation and commentary of the Mesillat Yesharim, the Path of the Just. We're in chapter 11 entitled The Details of the Quality of Nikiyut, which means cleanliness or purity. So how do we live a pure and a cleanly life? Blow by blow, step by step. How do we actually do it? And this book will enable you to begin to implement the particular means to enable you to start to live a righteous life. And this segment is entitled, it's part 14 of chapter 11, and it's entitled Evidence from Sources, Touching, Looking, Speaking, and Listening. And so previously we have looked at the subject of immorality and how we are to avoid things that are periphery to the main acts of sexual immorality that we are to avoid. And we've looked also at the Nazirite vow and how that is actually a model for maintaining sexual propriety. And so next time you read through the Nazirite vows in a Torah portion, or if you're doing some personal study on it, you can read it with a new understanding to realize that this is actually set down so that we can learn principles from the Nazirite vow to apply across the board to many things, and in this case, avoiding committing an act of sexual immorality. So touching, looking, speaking, listening, evidence from sources. Now I will bring proofs to all these matters from the words of the sages of blessed memory. First, regarding the act, meaning touching, embracing, or the like, was already explained above, and it is not necessary to speak further about this subject. Page 186. Regarding looking, our sages of blessed memory said, according to Tractate Berakot 61a, regarding the verse, a hand to a hand will not be cleansed of wickedness. And that is from Proverbs 11:21, Mishle 11:21. The Gemara explains, whoever puts money from his hand to her hand, or the other way round, in order to get a chance to look at her, will not be cleansed from the judgment of Gehenna. Now, I witnessed an encounter with a religious person who exchanged money to a lady, who gave money to a lady for an item that he bought in a shop. And he paused and he says, our hands just touched then. And then he said to her, we're actually in a physical relationship now. Now, he was joking, but this type of banter caused the woman to have a little bit of a giggle. And he was charming this particular lady, and so I don't know what he was thinking, but he was doing the very initial stages of putting on the charm, and so when he gave her the money, the hands touched, and he made this comment, and it was a true comment in a sense because they had actually physically touched, and so there was contact that went there, and that contact could have been seen as something that meant something that it wasn't meant to mean. And so he just brought it up. He brought up the fact that technically they're in a physical relationship. He's a customer. She's serving him, and they had physical contact. And he kind of made a joke about it, like they were in a relationship. But the reality is that's actually true, and he was using that in a way to charm the person, which was, a real eye-opener. I'll never forget it because this is somebody who I looked up to, and so we have to be extremely careful. Some of you guys out there, you really have a lot of emphasis placed on the fact that you have the gift of the gab, that you are able to sort of, make girls laugh. You're able to have conversations easily with people of the opposite sex, and this gives you a sense of self-worth. And I'm telling you right now, it's something that will drag you to Gehenna if you allow it to continue to reign unchecked. And so you don't need to do that to feel good about yourself, guys. The main thing to do to feel good about yourself is to learn Torah and incorporate as much of the Torah in your daily life as you can. And that will give you a real sense of self-worth and make you feel good. But the Sitra Hora, the dark forces, have, over the years have made us call good evil and evil good. Whoever puts money from his hand to her hand, or the other way around, in order to get a chance to look at her, will not be cleansed from the judgment of Gehenna. The divine council, when we stand in our preliminary judgment before the Beit Din of Shemayim, they're gonna know all these things. They're gonna know what is our motive for doing everything, and they're gonna want to know, what's the account that we're gonna give. Because we've got to have right motive, right intention. Even if you're not able to do a mitzvah, if you had the intention or not do it properly, if your intention was good, then it's considered as if you've really done it. But if you do a mitzvah perfectly, and maybe it was you did it because you wanted to, contact somebody that you shouldn't get in contact with, straight away the intention behind the mitzvah, maybe if you wanted to give some money to a family who was on hard times, and there was a member of the family who was a young, attractive lady, and you're married and you just want to have an excuse to speak with her, then that's for a wrong motive, and that's mitzvahs turned to an avera, sin. So be very, very careful and be very alert and aware of what's motivating you at any given time. They also said in Tractate Shabbos 64a through b, why did the Jews in that generation, when they waged war against Midian, need atonement? Because they feasted their eyes on Erva. So when the Israelites attacked the nation of Midian, the women would often dress immodestly in the hopes that the soldiers wouldn't kill them or harm them, and that they might receive favor from the soldiers that came and were rounding up the civilian population. In some cases, they would wear jewelry, because the jewelry was worth money and they could use that to bribe them. Also, it looked good on them and it enhanced their immodesty. Rav Shishis asked why, when the Torah enumerated the various ornaments in Bamidbar 3150, Numbers 3150, that were taken as spoils of war, did the Torah enumerate both the ornaments that were worn in the open and the ornaments that were kept covered by clothing? Because in some cases, they wore valuables that were hidden so they could keep them when they went into exile, as they probably ended up becoming a slave to a Jew, and they could barter. And to do this, you had to actually remove their clothes to find their ornaments, and so you would in the process see their nakedness. So a lot of soldiers, a lot of set apart righteous soldiers of the nation of Israel, inadvertently saw along during their campaign, their war campaigns, were exposed to nudity of women who weren't their wives. To say that whoever looks at a little finger of a woman with the intention of looking at it and getting a certain pleasure from seeing it, for example, a ring on her finger, it is as if he looked at the erva itself. So a lot of times you'll just be mesmerized by watching a person speak, and by looking at a woman's neck, and by looking at the lawful parts that are lawful for a woman to have exposed, but you're looking at these to gain pleasure and maybe set your imagination ablaze to think of other things that are there that you can't see if you know what I'm getting at. The sages also said in Avodah Zarah 20a, Tractate Avodah Zarah 20a, sorry. You should guard yourself against any wicked thing. A man should not look at a handsome woman, even if she's unmarried, and he should not look at a married woman, even if she is not handsome. Regarding speaking with women, we learn openly from the Mishnah in Avot 1.5, anyone who speaks much with a woman causes harm to himself. The Mishnah concludes, he will eventually inherit Gehenna. This is the plain meaning of the Mishnah, but sometimes it's permissible and even becomes a mitzvah to speak with a woman. However, people have to be aware that the mitzvah could just be an excuse to enter into sin, and I alluded to that before with my analogy. So be very careful. Why are you doing it for this particular person or family? Is it because there's a family member that you like to look at, you like to spend time with because you like the way she speaks, you like the sound of her voice? You're a married man. You should be, okay, fine, you hear a voice, you see her, yep, she looks amazing. Okay, that's all you need to know. You don't need to dwell on that and allow that episode to continue to unfold and unfold and unfold. by your doing. There is a story that Rav Yisrael Salanta was once seen. There is a story that Rav Salanta was once seen standing and talking to a young married woman at length, and his students were amazed. Later, he told them that this woman had just lost a child and was going toward the river. He suspected she was going to commit suicide, so he stopped to talk to her in order to persuade her that she will have other children, and she should not be desperate, and therefore it was a mitzvah. And so this is interesting because it reminds me of Yeshua when his own Talmudim was shocked to see him alone with a Samaritan woman at a well. And those of you that know the story of the Samaritan woman at the well that meets Yeshua, she had some issues. She was a pretty promiscuous lady. And so she probably wasn't in the best headspace that a person could be. No real prospects of ever being married, but if she was sort of hand-passed from one husband to another, in total having 5 husbands, which is also, by the way, an analogy of the 5 nations that have come against Israel as well, if you decide to study that little passage there. But he was pretty much doing a similar thing. And his encounter with her changed her life, and not only that, changed the life and the outlook of a lot of the people in the nearby Samaritan town. And so in this case, with Rav Yisrael Salanta, she could see this woman was going to commit suicide. She's probably still a beautiful woman. She's still going to have children, so she must have been pretty good looking. And so he in this particular occasion, it was a mitzvah to stop and talk to her one-on-one. So we have to be very discerning. And if we see somebody who's righteous, who's talking to a woman one-on-one, if they have a reputation of being righteous, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt that whatever they're doing is righteous. But if they're a wicked person, have a history of being a wicked person, and they're seen one-on-one with a woman, then obviously we can make our own determination that this is actually a bad thing. So it depends on a person's reputation. So that's what it means when it says a person's reputation is everything. This is something that could certainly happen, and there are cases that necessitate speaking with women. But in many cases, for instance, if a man arranges to learn Torah with a woman, even Mesillat Yesharim, it's only an excuse to go in the direction that the Torah doesn't want him to go in. So, you go, oh, listen, let's meet once a week and I'll teach you Torah. Really? You want to meet once a week and you're going to teach me Torah one-on-one to somebody of the opposite sex who's attractive? Okay. And it goes on to say, of course, speaking to a group of women is different. Now, it says that, but if you're regularly speaking to just groups of women and having a Torah class and they're all women and you're a man and you don't have any classes for men, and you're preoccupied with these classes for women, how many women are there? Why? That still is questionable. In the matter of listening to the voice of a woman, they said the voice of a woman is called erva. So even listening to a woman's voice to derive pleasure out of it is like seeing her nakedness. Most of you are familiar with you hear a woman singing, it's like seeing her naked. But even if you hear her just speak, if you're deriving some sort of pleasure from that, and she might be talking something about something normal, then that's like seeing her naked. So you have to be very careful what that's allowing you to do, what that's enabling you to do, what choice are you going to make from that? Why are you trying to draw pleasure from the sound of a woman's voice that isn't your wife? Most from Jews already know that men should not be present to hear a woman singing. There you go. But even when she isn't singing, her voice is a different kind of voice, and a man is aware that he is hearing a woman speaking, and the sound of the voice for a prolonged time has an effect on a person. The voice is made by Hashem, and Hashem made nature in such a way that a woman's voice arouses certain attitudes in a man for the purpose of procreation. Therefore, it's not advisable to listen to a woman for a long time, even if she's not singing and even if you're not saying anything. So a lot of times in my job, I'm an equipment liaison officer. I work in the logistics space for defense, and I have other ELOs, equipment liaison officers from other locations, and I'll often have to Skype them and talk to them about an issue I'm having, and I have to be careful. I'm talking to a woman. It's a disembodied voice over a Skype line, but I have to be careful that the conversation doesn't get too off track, and that we just start talking about personal matters. I have to close it down politely and say thank you very much for your help and move on to the next task of the day. And on top of that, I'm on work time too, so I'm doubling the Avera. I'm 2 for the price of 1 in terms of sins. potentially there. So you have to be very careful. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're enjoying these little short videos. Hope you have a great day or evening. Bye for now.